Right, moving on then. At IIT Madras, a first-of-its-kind innovation is presently underway. The Institute's Sudha Gopalakrishnan Brain Center is attempting a breakthrough that could change the very face of modern medicine. In 12 to 18 months, the center says it will release the world's first cellular-level 3D map of the human brain across age groups. That's from the second trimester fetuses to 100-year-olds with a history of medical conditions. This work, funded by IIT Madras alumnus Chris Gopalakrishnan, is already producing detailed 3D maps of the human brain with major implications for diagnosis, treatment, and even future AI. Earlier today, I visited IIT Madras and chatted up with Professor Mohanashankar Sivaprakasam, who heads the Brain Center, to find out more about how the tech could impact millions of patients and lead to bigger commercial applications. Here's a slice of that conversation.
If you look at the mission of the Brain Center, the ambition with which it was set up is to image whole human brains at cellular resolution.
Right.
Now let's go a little bit into it to get a sense of why it is so hard. You have hundreds of billions of neurons, right, in each human brain, right? And as we know, the human brain itself is quite different from a fetus all the way to a child, then to adolescent, to adult, and then to old age. Right? One of the fundamental challenges today medicine, both brain sciences and medicine faces, is we have not seen the brain in detail. Now, when we say detail, what do we mean by detail? Right? We can look at the brain at a millimeter level resolution in MRI, but unless you are able to see much more detail, which is at cellular level, a cell is about 10 micron. What does it mean? That's about 1/5 to 1/10 of a human hair. Unless you see the entire brain in detail, right? So think of, you see Chennai at a very high level. You really cannot plan and build all this, solve all the problems until you get the street level.
Right.
In fact, you need almost the house level view for you to really manipulate, build, right, solve problems with it. So that's a pretty good analogy at the brain level. So technology today doesn't exist to image human brains at cellular resolution.
Right.
So there are two problems now. The science doesn't have the answers. Now, to do the science, you don't have the technology. So one of the first things we did, which led to Dharani early part of this year, is we built a technology platform, which is where we are now, is the world's most advanced human brain imaging platform.
Right.
Which is, we take in a human brain, we acquire this human brains post-mortem in a very high quality manner. We have close to around 450 brains, what we call normal, neurotypical brains and diseased brains, various diseases. So we acquire them, we section them at very, very thin sections, about 10 to 20 micron. Then we image each section at about half a micron.
Right.
Right? So that's really a tall order in terms of data, in terms of resolution, in terms of engineering complexity. So we built all this from 2020 to 2022. Then the first set of results, the first set of human brain maps that we released is the second trimester fetus. Right? Why is that important? Right? Is from 12 weeks to about 24 weeks, the brain goes through extraordinary development, both in terms of structure, volume, size, its details. Right? So we finished that. Now we are continuing this journey. We are doing our third trimester, which is 24 weeks to 40 weeks, and we are doing adult brains as we are speaking. Right? So there are currently we are almost completed 10 to 15 adult brains, and our goal over the next year and a half, couple of years, is to have, for the first time in the world, human brain maps starting from first trimester all the way to 90, 100-year-old, across age groups, across genders, and different disease conditions. So that's what we are after.
Absolutely.
And in fact, the third trimester brains, fetal brains, that is completed. So we will be releasing that sometime in the next 6 months. And the adult brains, various adult brains are being done, different disease conditions, stroke, old age, which is aging-related neurodegeneration,
Right.
Alzheimer's, rabies infection, COVID infection. These are all the brains that we are currently imaging, and we will be releasing this data over the next 12 to 18 months.
Right. So 12 to 18 months, then you can have a comprehensive list of, of what the human brain looks like, the 3D imaging, and thanks to the work that you do and this platform that you've built. Now, cards on the table. What does this help solve, and what kind of impact do you see by way of this technology and the comprehensive data set that you develop thanks to the Brain Center and its work?
Right. So that's an excellent question. So the one way for you to look at this is neurology, which is how the field of medicine that treats neurological diseases. It's always hampered because it doesn't have details of the brain. Right? So if you look at where cardiology is today, or you take ophthalmology, we are able to see the organ in such great detail. Right? Especially you take ophthalmology, we are able to see in tens of microns the retina, and that has revolutionized the way we diagnose diseases and treat them, manage them. But the challenge with the brain, with the thick skull we have, everything is inside, and it's evolutionarily built that way that you can't access it. Right? I mean, that's why we are this way. So one of the first things it will do when all these things come out is to give a neuroscientist and the neurologists and people who treat brain-related disorders and diseases a clear picture beyond what they are able to see today.
Right.
That is the first significant development. Once you have that, you will have impact on how you treat it. Now, what does treatment modalities mean, right? Pharmaceuticals, surgery, right? Largely too, and there are other ways to manage behaviorally certain conditions. These are the places where you will start to see an impact, but that's a little further away. One of the first immediate things is medicine will have access to such level of details of human brains, which they can juxtapose with their existing knowledge, clinical knowledge, and then elucidate as to what is happening in these patients.
And how many patients do you project could likely be impacted by way of this work that you've done?
So usually, what happens in any medical field, right? The typical thing we always say is about 1% of people typically need some form of healthcare at any given time. So if you take a look at that way, it will be in millions. It will be millions every year who will have benefit of having this level of detailed images superimposed with their MRI, which is naturally at a lower resolution because it's being done real time. So the other way to look at is we are creating these detailed maps, right, which act as reference so that the individual patient details, it can be overlaid on top of it, and the contrasting features will help the clinician, the physician, or the surgeon, whatever the case may be, to take the further action.
Absolutely. I also hear that commercial applications, taking off from the technology platform itself are presently underway thanks to the work you've done at the HDIC itself. Could you elaborate on how commercial applications are being worked on with regard to the platform that you've built and where you could see actually industry going about utilizing this technology for the greater good in healthcare?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I have to go back a little bit as to how our group at IIT Madras is structured. So we are essentially a medical technology group, right? Which is we build medical technologies with an explicit goal of converting it to commercial products. Till date, since our work 2011 when we started, we have close to 12 commercial products in the market. Around 20 million patients have been impacted. Right? In one way, the Brain Center is an interesting fork, if you can say that, is not the way these medical technologies have been built for eye surgery, for eye examination, for endoscopy, for patient monitoring, robotic surgery. These are what you call, the science is already established. The clinical science is established. You have to build this technology, either because the technology is not available in India, or India has the need or the opportunity to develop a different kind of innovative technologies. That's how we have been doing, and as I said, 12 commercial products have come out. But the Brain Center, and indulge me on this a little bit, came up because Mr. Chris Gopalakrishnan, who's our distinguished alumnus, about 2014-15, he sort of challenged us, saying, today you're creating medical technologies where the science is already established. And what we can call, these are technologies that are for the next few years, let's say, right? Because they get into the market. But can India do absolutely cutting edge research that will produce new science, which means that you're producing new science, which will inevitably have new technologies associated with it, which will lead to much larger impact in fields which today the science itself is quite behind.
Right.
So the Brain Center, in one way, it is actually a technology problem because you don't have the technology to actually do these detailed brain maps. And we are successful in building that technology, and it's now running at full scale, full speed, almost at industrial scale, as you can see. Now the maps that are coming out, right, will have commercial implications. Right? From medical imaging point of view, there are commercial applications that you will have in how we take this brain itself, and this could be any organ. We are doing it for the brain. It could be for any other tissue, and we are able to do the entire 3D reconstruction of the entire tissue block at very, very fine resolution, half a micron, and we are in fact doing some genomics work also in a matter of few days, right? A few millimeter. So that will have commercial applications. So imaging, pathology. The other application, which we were a little bit surprised, we probably didn't realize this, in order to process this kind of data, which is petabytes of data, right? So we're talking about gigabytes, terabytes. We're talking about several petabytes of data per brain. Right? So if you're talking about 100 brains, you're talking about 200, 300 petabytes of data. To have this data even viewed, organized, stored, analyzed, right, requires new computing frameworks, new computing tools, new AI methods. That is something that we are continuing to develop. That will have, as we know, we are living in the AI boom as we are speaking. So that will have commercial applications as well.
Absolutely. Lots to look forward to then. You also mentioned Mr. Chris Gopalakrishnan being one of the patrons and supporters of the kind of work that you do. Going forward, do you see more such industry academia partnerships in order to further this work and take it far and wide in terms of the potential that it has out there to change the world that we live in?
Yeah. In fact, what Chris has done is really something. What it has done is has catalyzed this model itself. Today, this center, after Chris and the Principal Scientific Advisor's Office, Government of India, they're the one who took the initial risk to take a risk with us for us to build the technology platform. Since then, we have close to 15 industrial houses and family offices, philanthropists supporting this work. So in one way, this what Chris has started has already, created a new wave of funding cutting-edge science R&D through philanthropy and through industry funded R&D. And that is something that is already happening. And this will scale over the next few years, as we can already see it. And once that happens, once the science and technology is built, you will have what we call translational R&D, right? Which is, let's say, a medical imaging company or a pathology company will come in and say, I would like to translate this into a product. That will continue.
Right.
So, what Chris has started has actually ended up in a big wave, a new model of doing science, I must say.
And since you mentioned products, I said before I end, I have to ask you, so what's on the anvil? How many more products do you expect to be born out of the kind of work that you do and the kind of support that you've received? I know there's so much potential for applications. How many more going forward?
So, on the medical technology side, as I was telling you, there are about close to 10 different products that are commercially on the anvil over the next couple of years, which is in various fields, right? Robotic surgery, neonatal monitoring,
right.
Organ preservation and organ transport, cardiovascular, early cardiovascular screening. That's on the HTIZ side. And as I said, on the brain center side, there are a series of instruments, there are a series of what I would call data sets that are annotated at very great level of detail, which will have implication in clinical research, right? Trials, and so on. Right? And as I mentioned, the computing platform that we are building is something that has deep implications which even we have not realized fully.